Good morning. My name is Rev Kylie Renner, and on behalf of the entire One Spiritual Center community, I just want to welcome you here today. Thank you for bringing your love into this space this morning. Thank you for joining me in my front yard. It's so nice to see faces again. All of these vaccinated faces. It's wonderful. We forgot sometimes of what each other looked like over the last year. So it's lovely to see you. So some of you know that my process for figuring out what to speak on Sunday is always kind of interesting. And I try and tap into what feels like it's going on in me and around me and try and figure out how it is to say something relevant to what's going on. And so yesterday afternoon, I had sat down and realized that something I'd been struggling with was this idea that somehow thinking as human beings that we have to make things make sense. Like that's our job, is to make sense of our experience or what happens. And so I wrote off this thing and sent it, and then sat down to read the news, local news, and realized that I knew someone related to something that had been in the news. So you may have heard that a beloved priest in Albuquerque was killed in a car accident on Friday night out near the Abbey where he was working. And I was reading the article about this man and thinking, wow, that name looks really familiar. And then finally realized that I know his parents. In fact, they sit in this yard quite often. And so a member of our community, then Dan and Debbie Golden's, that was their son. And so I immediately texted Debbie saying, I can't even imagine what you're experiencing. I have no words. And she wrote back thanking me and also asking for this community to hold her and Dan in our hearts. And that's when you're going to talk about like the things that you cannot frickin' explain, right? Like the things that we can't make sense. Like somehow like all of it just went to some deeper place in me. And so I met Dan and Debbie now a few years ago because they were coordinating food for the Catholic Charities for the immigrants who were coming and the refugees who were coming through on all those busloads of refugees that were coming through. And we made meals together. And then over the years, then we have ate meals at each other's homes and shared experiences and community. And so my heart is just in that space this morning of tenderness that where we have to tap into something bigger than our ability to understand or make it make sense, and our capacity to hold each other in that. And so that's what today is all about. I have some more to say about the things that don't make sense, which is everything. But I'm just asking us this morning just to hold the Golden family in our hearts as they experience this devastating loss. And so we're going to start with some prayer. If you're comfortable closing your eyes and breathing into this moment, this precious, precious, precious moment. Where there's no need to be anywhere other than right where we are. Feeling whatever we're feeling, with all the things that are known and unknown and unknowable. And I just recognize the power and the presence of the one moving through this day in seen and unseen ways. And I recognize the love and the peace and the power of that one. And I let that love just pour out and over the Golden family today, as well as all those within the sound of my voice who could use a remembrance of that love and just let it pour out. And we let it be. And so it is.
Pour yourself in me, pour yourself into my heart. Oh, wonderful Spirit, pour your love in me, pour your love into my heart. Oh, wonderful Spirit, pour your love in me, pour your love into my heart. Oh, wonderful Spirit, shine your light in me, shine your light into my heart. Oh, wonderful Spirit, shine your light in me, shine your light into my heart. Oh, wonderful Spirit, pour yourself in me, pour yourself into my heart. Oh, wonderful Spirit, pour yourself in me, pour yourself into my heart. Oh, wonderful Spirit.
So to prepare for our meditation this morning, chosen a Mary Oliver poem entitled Little Summer Poem Touching the Subject of Faith. Every summer I listen and look under the sun's brass and even into the moonlight, but I can't hear. I can't hear anything. I can't see anything, not the pale roots digging down, nor the green stalks muscling up, nor the leaves deepening their damp pleats, nor the tassels making, nor the shucks, nor the cobs. And still, every day the leafy fields grow taller and thicker, green gowns lofting up in the night, showered with silk. And so, every summer I fail as a witness, seeing nothing. I am deaf to the tick of the leaves and the tapping of the downwardness from the banyan feet, of all of it happening beyond any seeable proof or hearable hum. And therefore let the immeasurable come. Let the unknowable touch the buckle of my spine. Let the wind turn in the trees and the mystery hidden in the dirt. How could I look at anything in this world and tremble and grip my hands over my heart? What should I fear? One morning, in the leafy green ocean, the honeycomb of the corn's beautiful body is sure to be there. And so we just take the energy of this, remembering to pay attention. And this welcoming of the immeasurable, and we allow the meditation to move us today.
That was a tune by John Bartlett. Now we're gonna called Summers Cool with an apostrophe S. After the first S. We're gonna feature Demi on this. Here we go. Count us in.
One, two, 3.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you guys, know what you're doing. That was great. Thank you. Ah. So I first have to admit that I realize that it is a very strange thing to give a sermon about why human beings try and understand everything. And it's funny because it's like me trying to understand why everyone tries to understand everything. Like it's a strange thing to look at. But I realize that one of the interesting things about where I am on my spiritual path is that there's this place where, like, the explanations that I came up with in the past, the boxes that I was able to put things in just don't work anymore. And there's something important there for me about realizing that as human beings, while we may desire to feel like we understand things because it makes us feel like we're in control, or we know the trajectory we're on, or that we can fit things into some sort of mental conceptions, that really not going to take us as far as we need to go. That can only take us so far. And as I've been speaking about over the last few weeks, this idea that then we have to let the training wheels come off. Then we have to let ourselves be able to welcome the unfathomable, as Mary Oliver so beautifully said, because it's only there that we're going to truly understand what we're really here to do and the fullness of what it means to be human. It's not about explaining things. So I always wonder, how is it that us as human beings have the arrogance and hubris to think that somehow out of all of this amazing creation, that somehow our brains, these things that exist in our heads, are somehow going to figure it out. There is something really strange about the fact that we want to make everything make some sort of sense to ourselves, especially the things that happen in life, right? That feel like they're not something we understand or want to happen. The things that don't fit in our small ideas. Those are the things that are especially the ones that we want to grasp onto and make sense. And those are the ones that are absolutely leading us to this other place. Right, so here I am, sitting with the feeling of not having any way to explain or understand why a 35-year-old is killed in a car wreck. There's that space where we just have to let something else happen. And it is in that space of not understanding and not knowing that we hit on something deeper. And so there's in the Zen tradition a story that has always resonated with me. And I went and read more about it because I wanted to understand where it came from. So this is actually a central tenet that is often missed about the Buddha's teaching, which was that he was really clear that mental understanding wasn't where it was at. That we shouldn't agonize over all of these metaphysical questions. That there was something else that we were there as humans to experience and to be, and that's where the focus needed to be. And so he told it in the stories because, so many great spiritual teachers use parables. And this is the way that Thich Nhat Hanh talks about this particular story. So this is what he says. The Buddha always told his disciples not to waste their time and energy in metaphysical speculation. Whenever he was asked a metaphysical question, he remained silent. Instead, he directed his disciples towards practical efforts. And so questioned one day about the problem of the infinity of the world, the Buddha said, whether the world is finite or infinite, limited or unlimited, the problem of your liberation remains the same. Whether it is or not, all of those things, the problem of your liberation remains the same. And so another time he said, this is the famous story. Suppose a man is struck by a poisoned arrow and the doctor wishes to take the arrow out immediately. Suppose the man does not want the arrow removed until he knows who shot it, his age, his parents, and why he shot it. What would happen? If he were to wait until all of these questions had been answered, then he might just die first. And so Thich Nhat Hanh says, life is so short, it must not be spent in endless metaphysical speculation that does not bring us any closer to the truth. And so the famous story about the poison arrow and the desire to know where it came from and the motivations and who shot it and why, instead of just removing it, is, for me, it hits on that central part of that human tendency to want to know why and how and make it make sense before we even are willing to deal with the fact that the thing is killing us, right? Or is causing us harm. That the freedom and the liberation that we're looking for doesn't come from understanding that, is what this teaching points us to. But we get trapped there, right? Like, I mean, our human brains are amazing things, but we get trapped in our use of them and our explanations and our desires to try and control things through the power of our mind. So I actually had a funny conversation about this week, because one of the things that I've fought so hard against over the years in a lot of New Thought and metaphysical teaching is this idea that we're supposed to control things through the power of our mind. In fact, that's one of the central tenets of several New Thought teachings. And there's this sense in which while I understand partially where that comes from, there's also this deeper thing that says, what if that's not what this is really about? What we can do that is part of what our brains can do, what our minds can do. But what if that isn't what the real relationship that we're being called into is about? What if it's not about control? What if it's about being willing and able to open to the fact that we are much more than that? So Mark Nepo says it this way, and this is from the Book of Awakening, and it's a section called Consider or Enter. And it starts with a quote: "If you try to comprehend air before breathing it, you will die. If you try and comprehend air before breathing it, you will die." We can only consider things so long. After a while, all the information, all the options, all the opinions will begin to weigh us down. After our deeper eyes have seen the situation, all the well-meaning voices telling us what we should or should not do will start to feel like strings that we can't cut through. This was poor Hamlet's fate, who overthought his life away. He overconsidered which way to go until he felt stalled and oppressed by just being in the world. It is natural enough to be cautious and thoughtful, especially when faced with important decisions, but often the only way to know what awaits us is to live it. This brings to mind the revelation that came upon a Hindu sage centuries ago, and one day in the middle of their morning prayers, the sage suddenly rose and ushered his students away from the monastery. And he rushed them and shooed them back into life like little ducks, proclaiming, "The day is to be experienced, not understood." The day is to be experienced, not understood. So I realize that there's so much habit around trying to understand things that it's really easy to not even realize that there's another way, right? Because we've been taught, and we live in a culture that says that the opposite, that life is to be understood, not to be experienced. And so breaking this habit requires us to be willing to say, I don't know a lot. and be willing to let that be enough. Not like I don't know in this moment, and 10 years from now I will see the bigger picture and it'll all make sense. You know, those kind of stories we tell, because we all have them. But how about just I don't know. I don't know how this makes sense. I don't know how I'm going to get to the other side. I don't know. And letting that be enough. Because if we are willing to really let that be enough, I believe that we start to really trust in this thing that we're doing, our deeper relationship, what's really happening. And we stop constraining it by our mental machinations. And though that control stuff can only take us so far. So I've been thinking about this from the perspective of a word that's actually hard to say, so I'm going to try and say it. Defamiliarization. See, I knew I was going to mess it up. Defamiliarization. There we go. Right? So this is the interesting thing about a lot of experiences in our lives that we claim to be negative, is that they aren't actually necessarily negative, but what they are is not familiar. They're things that take us out of what feels comfortable and familiar. And so on a spiritual level, this idea that we welcome defamiliarization as part of the process that takes us deeper into our experience, like this willingness to let things feel unknown and unknowable, is this willingness to say deeply to that infinite wisdom inside of us that we're willing for it to be bigger than we thought it was in the past. That we are willing to trust in it and let ourselves get out of the constraints that we have placed upon our experience. So my title this morning is actually about the friction that creates that defamiliarization, right? Like that place where we let go of what we think we know and what we think we understand, and how we let that push off against things. Because right there in that friction place is often where we as humans start to just freak out. Right? We're experiencing friction and we don't think we understand. And so we try and make it make sense real quick. Right? We try and tell a story about how all of this fits into something else. And if we stopped doing that, what I realized could happen is this kind of dynamic lift that can come from that tension. And this place where we let go of that story that we've been telling. So there's a teacher that I followed for a while that I'm not going to share their name because I'm not certain I would agree with a lot of what or how they teach anymore. But one of the things that I learned from this person was this sense in which the friction that we experience when we get defamiliarized with things creates this kind of turbulence. And that turbulence is necessary and a powerful part of our experience. And we can't experience turbulence if we think we know what's going on. If we have an explanation for everything, if we think we know how it fits, we can't really experience the turbulence. And so we have these things that happen through us and in us that get us all riled up and thinking that the world is ending, when really all they are is turbulence trying to get us defamiliarized with what we think is going on. And there's so much power there that can be unleashed when we stop resisting. And so this teacher taught about what happens when we let that turbulence, instead of causing us to feel off or like we haven't gotten, or we're out of control, or we don't have an explanation, that instead of using that, we use it as an opportunity to focus our strength. And so here's that interesting part, right? Where when our brains aren't needing to make things make sense and fit into some small idea of what's happening, all of a sudden this bigger part of ourselves can take over. This part that's not about the need for a specific outcome or to make it make sense in some story we're telling about where we're going with our life or whatever ridiculousness that we've gotten ourselves caught in. And there's something really powerful then about that liftoff that can come from that focus strength. And I just think it's so interesting to realize that so much of what goes on in our lives is somehow something that we've just needed to put as a placeholder because we wanted something that made sense. And so we put a story on something that didn't need a story, or we focused on something that didn't need our attention just because we wanted everything to somehow make sense. And really the wisdom inside of us wants us to open to the fact that that's not really what we're here to do. Or we can make certain things make sense, but at some point we gotta let something else take over. And it is that place where the real relationship that we have with this thing called life happens. And that's where we get to have that experience that the Hindu teacher spoke about. So one of the things that I know about this is that when we allow for that level of not needing to make things make sense or make it so that they fit in our small conception of reality, that we actually then create a space for something bigger to happen. It's like by putting our trust in Spirit then can put its trust in us, can put a bigger field in front of us, can make room for that which is unknowable and unknown, and that's where that trust really comes in. So I have one last story to end with, which I think it fits. We'll see. This is a story my friend told me about their Uncle Oscar. And their Uncle Oscar had never been on an airplane, and he was in his 70s, and someone was getting married. And so he finally said, all right, I will finally go on my first flight. And so he went and he got to the wedding, and his family was asking him how the experience was, his first flight. He had been terrified his whole life. And he said, well, it wasn't as bad as I thought it might be. But I have to tell you this, I never did put all of my weight down the whole time. And right, there's ridiculousness, but there's also something there, right? Like that place where we put ourselves in where we don't need to make it make sense. And the things that we can do then, the things that we can do if we don't have to make it all fit into our idea and our narrative and our explanations of things. And so we can be a little Uncle Oscar, and we can take our first flight, and we can not put all of our weight down while we're up in the air, and we can trust that there's something else that's putting its trust in us. And so I'm going to ask the band to come on up as we are going to prepare the way for prayer today by singing. And as we do that, I'm going to invite you to think about maybe some place where you've been struggling to make sense of something. Why is this happening? Why did this happen? And we're going to see if just letting Spirit into that place allows for some peace that doesn't need to go with an explanation. And so please join me as we sing into our prayer.
Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, sets us free.
So our prayer of love today is a prayer that embraces the freedom of not knowing, that embraces the capacity to let things just be without needing to explain them or make them fit into some story we are telling about the world. And I know that Spirit is right here, living and breathing in and as and through all of us, no matter what's going on, whether it needs to be explained or not. And I just recognize the unfathomable power available right here and right now as we allow ourselves to let go and to trust deeper in the experience rather than our explanation of it. And I just know deeply, beyond any kind of mental conceptions, that Spirit is absolutely fully present and available, whether it makes sense or not. And I just allow that wisdom to carry us forward, to soften the places where we've been holding back because we couldn't quite make it make sense. And I just know that on the other side of that is everything. And I just let go into that. And I let it be. And so it is.
Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, sets us free. Here's a tune by Wes Montgomery.
That was great. Thanks. Ah. Yeah, my heart is in my throat. So please just continue to join me in pouring love all over Debbie and Dan Golden this week and going forward as they figure out what this is all going to look like going forward. Just knowing this community has enough love in it to lift them in this experience. So I thank you for watching online as well. It's so nice to see some faces I haven't seen for a while also out here. There are baskets in the trees if you'd like to make a contribution that allows us to continue to do what we're doing. We also have a place on our website, onespiritualcenter.org, to do that. Also want to let you know that if you are in the mood for some more music today, our amazing Sid Fenley and John Bartlett will be part of a benefit concert for Family Promise of Albuquerque. That's going to be an online concert, so you can watch it on Facebook, I believe, at the Family Promise page. And as soon as it goes live, I will share it. So if you're friends with me and want to watch, you can find it there, because we're not exactly sure where to find it yet. It'll also be on YouTube, we hear. And it's just a great opportunity to hear some music and support a great cause.
So John and I and Michael Anthony, Maud Bietenhauer, Rodolfo Gonzalez, Diana Hughes, Tracy Whitney, and Carrie Simmons.
Woohoo! Yeah, a bunch of lovely people. So that's today at 4. So if you're interested, you want to check that out. And just another reminder, because now we're back in the cycle. So it will be the 4th Saturday in June. We will be at Roadrunner Food Bank. And we're excited to be back and able to give back to our community in that way together. So 10 to noon on the 4th Saturday, we will be there together. And I believe that we are ready to sing.
One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Let's give thanks to the Lord and we can feel alright. People, get ready for the train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith, hear that diesel humming. Don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Let's give thanks to the Lord and we can feel alright. People, get ready for that train to joy, picking up passengers from coast to coast. Faith is the key, open the doors and boredom. There's room for all that love them both. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Let's give thanks to the Lord and we can feel alright. Let's get together and feel alright.
And we have one last blessing to sing to one another.
Go forth and walk in beauty.